Hi everybody, I'm Gina Rufo, and today I'm going to tell you a little bit about the history of Halloween. So Halloween is a very historical holiday with lots of myths and tradition and folklore, which makes it my favorite. Now this is going to be a brief history, but if you're interested, I highly recommend looking into the History Channel's docu-series on the Salem witch trials and Vlad the Impaler, and some of the historical characters who influenced Halloween's modern ghosts and ghouls. Because today we're really going to be talking about pagan traditions that influence the celebration of spirits, as well as my two favorite holiday traditions and the myths surrounding them. So I have some notes that I'm going to be looking at, and I think we should just get started. So obviously, we celebrate Halloween on October 31st every year. But when it started out as the ancient Celtic festival of Samhain, where people would wear costumes and light huge bonfires to ward off ghosts, they celebrated this on November 1st because it marked the end of the summer harvest and the beginning of winter, which was seen as the coldest, darkest time of the year and the time associated with the most deaths. The Celts believed that on this night alone, the boundary between the worlds of the living and the spirit realm was blurred, and spirits were able to return to earth and their earthly possessions freely, but for this night only. The Celts accredited crime and crop failure to the presence of angry spirits, but they were thankful for their presence because it made it easier for Celtic priests and mystics to predict the future of the winter and how harsh it would be, which provided the Celts with comfort and direction for the unknown that was to come. They built huge sacrificial bonfires to the deities and wore costumes typically of animal heads and animal skins to try and tell each other's fortunes. Around 43 AD, when the Roman Empire was at its height and it had conquered a majority of Celtic land, which is modern-day England and Ireland, they combined their own festivals with the celebrations of Samhain. The first Roman celebration was called Feralia, a day in late October where they commemorate the dead. The next was a day to honor Pomona, the Roman goddess of fruit and trees. Pomona's symbol is the apple, which could explain the modern tradition of apple bobbing, of bobbing for apples. On May 13th, 609, Pope Boniface IV dedicated the Pantheon in Rome in honor of all Christian martyrs. Pope Gregory III later moved the celebration to November 1st. Around this time, Christianity had spread to the Celtic lands, and by November 2nd became All Souls' Day and the Catholic Church's attempt to squash pagan rituals. This attempt did not work, and they ended up combining most of the rituals with the Catholic ideals. All Souls' Day was celebrated with bonfires, parades, and citizens dressing up to imitate saints, the angels, and the devil. It was also called All Hallows' Day, and the night before it was called All Hallows' Eve, which eventually became Halloween. So I've prepared a few folklores and stories to share that I found interesting that I don't think many people know the origin of. So to start, we have jack-o'-lanterns. So the story goes that a man named Jack was an avid drinker, and he was on a ride home after a night of heavy drinking when he ran into the devil. The devil convinced him to try and escape him or he'd take his soul. So Jack ran up a tree. But he's described as being a quick thinker and ended up tricking the devil in his own game by carving a cross into the tree. So when the devil tried to catch him, he was trapped. The devil, having been outsmarted by a mortal man, made a deal with Jack that although Jack lived a very sinful, not great life, he wouldn't go to hell. So Jack agrees, and he lives a long life of drinking and sin and a bad life, and then he dies. And he's refused entry into heaven. But then he's refused entry into hell because the devil kept his promise. So the devil throws a coal from the pits of hell to Jack to light his way in the dark. And Jack takes a hollowed out turnip and places the coal in the middle to carry with him on cold nights. So it's said that to this day, Jack walks with his lantern all around the earth trying to find a final resting place. So the turnip was used in Northern Europe to be carved during Halloween, but immigrants to North America around the colonist time, used the native pumpkin for carving due to how soft it is and its large shape, which made it easier to carve. Another major folklore is about black cats. In the Middle Ages, cats were thought to have been spies and the companions of witches. In the 16th century in Italy, people thought you would die if a black cat slept on your bed. While today, black cats are seen as both negative and positive in many countries, lucky and unlucky, their affiliation with magic began in the early Middle Ages. Since cats roam at night and are good hunters, they were thought to be the supernatural servants of witches, who roamed throughout the nights in the streets to gather ingredients for the witches' brews and potions, or the witches themselves in disguise, as it was seen that when a witch died, her cat seemed to disappear. For many years, while witches were rounded up, tried, and killed, their cats were often killed with them, because they were seen as also committing the crime of witchcraft. So that's a brief history of Halloween and a little bit of the folklore, the ones that I find the most interesting. Thank you for watching. Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween, everyone.
And now we go off.
Yep.
Shut her down.
Shut her down.